everyone, and welcome to another powerful episode of Zim Ladies Roundtable, Girl Chat with Tino and Dr. Taffy on the Brownstone. I'm your host, Dr. Taffy, and I'm here with my co-host, Tino. First and foremost, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Zim Ladies Roundtable, so you don't miss any of these episodes. At Zim Ladies Roundtable, we believe in engaging, empowering, and elevating our community. So today we are diving deep into a topic that affects far too many people, yet it's often spoken about in whispers: domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we believe it's crucial to shed light on the reality of those living through it, and more importantly, highlight the strength it takes to survive and thrive. We're honored today. We're very, very honored to have Christine Gumunyu with us today. She's a survivor, a warrior who not only escaped a cycle of abuse, but has since rediscovered herself, found love, and rebuilt a beautiful life with her family. Her story is one of resilience, self-discovery, and ultimate happiness. Christine, we are so grateful to have you here to share that journey with us. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Taff and Tino. I'm really honored to be here and having an opportunity to be able to share and, to just discuss the real things about life and things that we go through. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Could you just share a little bit about your journey, either your journey through the domestic violence situation or after leaving the abusive relationship, because that's the most important part that we're here to talk about. You finding, the turning point that set you on a path to reclaiming your life.
So, as with every young girl or girl child, I think when you get to a certain age, you'd like to believe that you're ready for love, you're ready to settle down and to have a family. And about 50 years ago, I thought I was ready, which I still think I was ready. Met a man and it was a man and we fell in love and everything seemed to be going okay. But the first thing that I will tell you is the red flags came up pretty early. They came up early, but you know what it is? It's like you weigh and you say, okay, I'm 28 now and I've seen the red flag, but you kind of think, we'll work through it or we'll get over it. And
It'll
then you
get
just keep,
better. Uh-huh.
yeah, it'll get
Yeah.
better. And you keep seeing the red flags, but you're like, no, it'll turn green or amber
Mhm.
soon. And you just keep going. Um, it was a life-changing experience for me. Um, and I think I can safely say you never really regain who you were back. You evolve into a new person, but you lose such a big part of yourself because it's a transformational experience. Why do I say that? Because you to 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 be put into the hands of someone who you've entrusted your life with, whom you've entrusted your love with, whom you've entrusted your entire being, mind, body, and soul, to have them hurt you in that kind of manner, to threaten you, to tear you apart, to bring you down, is something that yeah, I have no words to describe how that feels because it's such a high level of betrayal. It's a high level of hurt because you don't expect that. You expect that someone whom you love will always protect you and have your interests at heart. But you also then quickly realize that this is life, right? And it happens. Um, and it happens to the best of us. It happens unexpectedly. And for me, I think, Dr. Taff, as you asked, the biggest turning point for me was all the abuse that I went through was pretty much one-on-one. Him and I, a lot of it was also subjected to people who were around us in the sense that he was also quite an insecure person. So we would maybe go out for dinner or something, and Then someone would look at me and then he would start getting a bit agitated to say, oh, Munoziana, which in English means I kind of feel like you guys know each other. Why is that guy looking at you? And I'm like, first of all, I'm 6'1". Of course, people are gonna look at me,
Right.
right?
So, well, you don't
Like
even look that tall when you're sitting
I
there.
know, I know. Like it's a natural thing. People are going to
Mhm.
look at me because I'm an
Right.
anomaly. And just because another man has looked at me doesn't mean that I can't be subjected to your reaction over someone looking at me. Like I've done nothing wrong.
Right.
Um, so this particular incident, um, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. He had been missing, Christmas of 2012 for 48 hours, and I literally did not know where he was. And when he was missing, um, I was beside myself because I called every hospital, every morgue, every police station, trying to think, where is this guy? On the third night, my friend said, do you know what? We've had enough of this. Wherever he is, he must be safe because he was relatively well known. So if something had happened, we'd like to assume that you would have known by now, since he's someone who's known. Let's take you for dinner. So this couple, friends of ours, both of ours, came, picked me up, and we met and we went for dinner. Very, very nice night, just to get my mind off the situation that I was in. And then by the time he came back home, later on that evening, and he discovered that I wasn't home, he called me and he was like, right, nakubata, you're not home. And I'm like, says
Sir.
says he, sir, who's been missing for 3 days. Like,
Right.
uh, you know,
Let's talk about
hypocrisy
that,
much?
right?
Let's talk about that. So he then said, I'm going to come to where you are. So the first thing that I'd like to say, and I've always said this publicly, is a lot of people don't realize that sometimes the things you say have got very, very effect. It turns out that when I was at dinner, a couple of people who know us had already called him and they were like, ah, tatona madam wako tiri kuningi. Ah, tatina madam. Tabaona vari kuningi. And it's like, number one, no one has asked you to
Mhm.
intervene and to call someone and tell them that tawana madam wako, even if it was vice versa, or kiri
Mhm.
tawana murum wako. They don't realize the impact that has in a situation
Right.
like mine. Fair and fine, they
Right.
don't know what I'm going through. But
Mhm.
literally, he then said, I'm coming there, and when I come there, I'm going to kill you. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I said to my friends, let's pay the bill and let's go home. I called ahead and I said, Kuna auntie, can you please pack him with Zivana? Because I want to go to my parents' house because I'm done. For me, I think at that point it was the audacity to say, you've
Mhm.
been missing for so long. I've been so worried about you. And the first thing you're saying to me is, where are you? Instead of
Right.
apologizing or explaining yourself, your issue is to say, where are you? So I then left, and as I was going, he obviously was following and he went to the restaurant where we were. I got home, managed to get the kids into the car, managed to get my auntie into the car. And then as we drove out, we had a very, very long driveway. Um, his car then intercepted my car. I hadn't seen that he was coming. And then I remember looking at him, and the look on his face was just, yeah, the look on his face. I managed to circumvent his car. And if I tell you, like literally, we had 160-kilometer high speed car chase in the neighborhood of Greendale at like 11 p.m. at night as he was chasing me down the street. And now, one auntie in the back of the car was screaming. My friend who was sitting in the passenger seat, she was also screaming. And every time we would speed, he would speed up and he would come and he was trying to veer my car off the road.
With the
And
kids
then
in the car?
with the kids in the car.
Wow.
And then my car got stuck in a ditch.
Mm.
And when it got stuck in the ditch, I remember he opened his door and he came out and he had a big blunt that he had, like on the tips of his lips. And the next thing, all I heard was shattering glass. And I thought, oh my God, he shot through the window because he had a firearm. I looked to my left and I thought, okay, I can hear my friend, she's screaming. So number one, that means she's alive. I can still hear my auntie screaming, so they're alive. And I looked, and you'll not believe that through the whole ordeal, the kids were sleeping. They never woke up once.
Wow.
In that moment, literally, when I say divine intervention, I do not know to this day how I got out of that ditch without the grace of God. It's as if the car was just lifted by an angel or by the Holy Spirit, placed on the road, and I ended up driving through May. I don't know a lot of people who are not familiar with Greendale. I ended up driving through Mays Fields, and then I ended up coming up to an embankment. And then it made me realize that I was now on Harare Drive. So I had driven through the back roads of Greendale blindly just to get away. And as I drove and turned into Harare Drive, I went straight to the police station. And as I got there, I was hooting so they could come out and come and help because I didn't know whether he was still behind. And I remember the officer in charge and the police officers running and saying, Ambuya, what's going on? And I distinctly said to them, Mkwasha did it right. Shikanzi Ndagati, all I can tell you is this today, the 26th of December, is the last day that I'll ever live with my husband again. And that was it. That was the last day. That was the last day. I never went back on my word. And the difference, as you asked, is the children. For me, I was fine. Not fine, but I was fine with the abuse being one-on-one. Us together as adults towards each other. But when it involved the kids and on a level where you've got no regard, you've got no care, you are insensitive, and it's so violent and so aggressive, I couldn't do it anymore. And that for me was a turning point in my life.
So in your transition after that day, how have the kids handled it? Because I know you were going through it, and as an adult, you could maybe compartmentalize differently than the children, because that's their dad. They love their dad. But how do they go from leaving that household, going to a different place? How do you even explain that to your children why you're leaving?
And how old were they at that time?
The best thing to ever happen to me is the fact that the boys were 2 and 1. They were 2 and 1. So the older one didn't take it very well, in the sense that he was aware of violence and he would understand that something negative was happening. But for me, I also think the transition for me to be able to move on and have strength and put myself together was the fact that my children didn't know any better because they were so young. So I had the opportunity to create a completely new canvas for them and to normalize our situation and for them to actually acknowledge and say, it's mom and us, like mom and the boys. And for them, that was the family that they knew. So for me, it was actually a blessing in disguise.
So we talked about, how as Zimbabwean or African parents or, the aunties, the uncles, they tell you, go back, go back for the children, go fix your marriage. It's going to be okay. Pray about it. And, and all of that. But, what role did your family play, from this point on, as far as your healing process or your healing journey goes? Were they supportive, or did they, revert to that mentality of, fix your marriage, let's pray about it, go talk to the pastor, or, how did they support you?
So when I was pregnant with my second son, I had left before, and we actually were not living together for 5 months, from like when I was 4 months pregnant until the time I pretty much gave birth. But what happened is my dad made a concerted effort to say, listen, I'd like you to go back to your husband. And when you go back, I'd like you to put 150% into your marriage, not 100%. And he said, I know what I'm asking you to do is a very difficult thing, but I need you to do it for yourself for tomorrow. Because if you go in and you genuinely put in 150%, if for some reason things don't work out or you have to leave, you can leave with your head held high because you know you tried your best. That was his thing. You will know that you tried your absolute best. You gave it your all genuinely, and you really wanted your marriage to work. It was the hardest thing that anyone has ever asked me to do. Because at that stage, I was actually okay with being a mom of a 1-year-old and pregnant to another. But I had accepted that that was my fate. So it didn't go down very well with me. But, being someone who respected my father and respected his outlook, I understood the principles of why he was asking me to do that. So I went back and I put in my 150%. And that's why I also feel on that 26th of December, when I had that serious affirmation and the conviction to say it was the last day, I knew that beyond reasonable doubt, no one and nothing would be able to change my mind.
Mm.
The first thing that helped me was I didn't talk about it because I feel when you're in a situation like I was and you're still seeking validation or still saying, guys, something has happened, don't see it, you're not ready. Someone who's ready will call you and say, oh, I've got a court date tomorrow, by the way. I've left him. So yeah, if you're coming, you're coming. If you're not, I'll let you know how that's pretty much how I was operating. And my parents knew. I said, this is what I want. I'm not going back. And everyone tried. You know how it is, the police officers, oh, counseling and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, not interested. I'm not having any kangaroo courts. I'm not having any of that. It's lawyer to lawyer. So my first conditions between us as a couple were to say, we're only relating between lawyer and lawyer. I'm not doing the whole family, Gariskoi Pasi, Wana, church, blah, blah, blah. No, not interested because I was done.
Right.
Like I was done. And for me, it was now about how do we move forward from this decision that I've made and how do we make it as pain-free as possible. And I think a very sad thing for me was seeing him going through the reverse transition of when he really realized that I was done and him struggling to accept the fact that Kitty is really done. That was very, very hard for him because I think for women, it takes a very long time for you to get to that point. It takes a very, very long time. You might check out emotionally somewhere along the line, but you're still there, you're still persevering, you're still cooking, you're still smiling, you're still hosting the family, you're still looking after the kids, etc. But the day like, you know how Jaheim sang, when a woman's fed up, he knew what he was saying, right? Like there's nothing that you can do. And when I just made that decision, there wasn't a single person who was able to convince me otherwise. And for me, my bargain with God was, God, if you get me out of the ditch at the time, I will do your work. I will speak about it. I will share and I'll speak of your greatness and I'll be a testimony to your grace and to your mercy and to the fact that I can live because I was like, if I leave a 2 and 1-year-old child, what good would I have done them? So I had to make a choice to save myself.
Wow. So what was your recovery process? What things did you have to, because you never are the same, but you can get to a point where you become much better than the place that you were at. What things did you do to recover back to at least to get to a normal place again, or whatever normal might be?
My recovery was awful. It was awful because number one, I'd like to say in the space that I was in and the situation I was in, leaving and divorce wasn't because I necessarily wanted to, but I had to. Number one, I'll repeat that. It wasn't something that I necessarily would have wanted to do, but I had to do it. So you're severing yourself from something that maybe prematurely because you know it's coming, but something triggers it and then you know you have to do it. So you're dealing with that. And then I ended up having extreme adverse physical after effects. So I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, of which I'm sure you're aware, a lot of Black women go through this, right? When you find yourselves in situations of extreme stress,
Right.
And I can even tell you the day that I remember what triggered the stress. I was at work, working out of town. One of the conditions of us separating was I had asked that he move out of our matrimonial home, which was fine. He moved. And I remember being in Yazura specifically and getting a call from the maid in Vachiti. Baba vauya pane mapurisa 7 vese vane pfuti vari kuti baba vemba ngavadzoke mumba mavo. Mai venyu vari kuda kutonga baba vepanapa kuti vagare musango saka ngavadzoke pamba. I'm like 300 and something Ks away. I'm thinking, I've got a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. There's 7 policemen with rifles or pistols in the house, and they reinstated him into the house. And I drove in the middle of the night from Yazura to come back to Harare. And when I went to see the officer in charge, he was like, Madam, munongoziva zvinonetsa. And he was done. Those were his words to me, zvinonetsa.
That's all the support you got from the police?
Yeah, hanzi zvinonetsa. So they reinstated him into the house against the conditions that we had set, that he needed to move out of the house as we were going through the process. So within 48 hours, I had moved out with the kids. And I said, oh, if you're here for the house, it's fine, my guy. You can have the house because you're not here for me and the kids. So in 48 hours, we had left. But that day, as I was driving from Yazura to Harare, I remember I was like, my stomach is so painful. My stomach is so painful. We then moved within 48 hours, and then I was in hospital for 2 weeks after that. To be very honest, for me to tell you if they found something distinct that they can say they diagnosed me with, they didn't. But that event is what triggered 9 years of illness. I was literally in hospital every 2 weeks from 2013 until 2019. I was in hospital literally, like no joke. I even have a bed at Avenues 10B. I can even tell you the bed. That's how bad it was. My hair fell out. I was now on chemotherapy treatment for autoimmune conditions. It was horrible. It was so, so horrible to go through that. You've got young children, you're diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, you're taking X classified medication. I'm trying to deal with that. I'm trying to be a corporate mom. I'm trying to go to work. I'm trying to do school run. It was hard. It was so, so hard. You're also dealing with the father of the children now. You're dealing with a delayed divorce because of issues and he won't sign because of the whole like, can we try and get back together? But you're still like, no, we're not getting back together. It was so hard. But the one thing that I decided to do for myself to create love between my sons and I was they went to boarding school when they were very young. So they went to boarding school when they were 6 and 4, respectively, because my younger one went to preschool, went to creche early. So he was like a bit ahead. They're a year apart. Um, and to be honest, it wasn't even something that I thought of in an emotional way. It was a practical thing because I was not able to take the medication that I was taking to then wake up and do school run, to also then be functional at work. I made so many decisions now where if you ask me now in 2024, I'll be like, oh, but manongu nikamende boarding ere. But I actually did it. They had to go to boarding school so that at least if they went and they were away from me, when we came together, there was love and I was okay and I was ready for them to be there. But I was not able to deal with my children face to face on a daily basis. It was too hard for me because I was just trying to cope with my own self and my own situation and trying to stay alive, literally. And something else that I did was I decided to say, now we're in this situation, let me create memories for them. We traveled. We traveled quite a lot, the three of us. So on the streets, I'm known as my boys because everyone just like Kitty and her boys, Kitty and the two boys. We traveled together. I decided to invest in myself and I went to school and got several qualifications. It all became about bettering myself and making sure that I created memories for the boys. And I almost feel like the illness phase that I went through was really good for me because it made me an intentional parent. In as much as they were in boarding school, I used a lot of intent when we were together about creating memories and just saying, in case I don't make it or this time I go, something else is taken out of me or whatever, at least let my boys say we had good memories with our mom.
Yeah. Oh, Christine,
That's heavy.
it's very heavy, and just this we rely on the police so much. We think they're here to protect us and
Right.
serve. And in your instance, that's not what they did at all,
They failed.
so what resources did you have, at at your disposal, if any at all? Did you find any help outside of family and friends? Were there any resources, um, any people that you could reach out to, any advocates that you could reach out to for advice, for assistance while you were going through all of this?
I had a very good lawyer. I ended up having two lawyers because he was very antagonistic and very unpredictable. Um, but I also need you to understand that in 2012, leaving a husband was basically taboo.
Mm,
The first question I would be asked at civil court, at the police, by the magistrate is, Wakaite,
mm,
Mm.
aswakabat ko nechikomba. It was always about me, nechikomba, and this and that. And it's so heavy on a woman to say, you actually don't even know what I've gone through. And the first thing you're going to ask me is to say, Kuti, wakaite. It was so hard because in society in general at that time didn't know how to deal with a woman who says, I've left my husband and I need to take him to court and musungisa, because the first thing is always Madiku Tawarana. Gare
Mm.
Pasi, he's the father of your children.
mm. Did you
Baba
go
yung
on
mana
that
wano
tip?
sungiskwere. Oh no,
Mm,
I did not go to Tete. I didn't do anything through family. When
mm,
the day on the 26th of December, I'll keep referring to that date, I only dealt with the judicial system, the
Yes.
police and the courts. And because what then happened is even after I left him, the physical abuse continued because he was now going through that unfortunate phase, like I said, of acceptance of or denial of acceptance of the fact that I had left.
Mm.
Um, so he was still attacking me, for lack of a better word. So I would still go to the police and I'd go back again and go to the courts. I spent like all that. No, he was supposed to be arrested. Why did you take him out? Go and get him and do that. And I was doing it pretty much a lot. You're busy. And I was saying, I'll go and I'll do it by myself. And I did it. Get the documents, get the forms, and it's the ladies' groups that I was in. So I would always use everything I was going through because imagine a lot of women can't go to Harare to civil court to go, oh, the office doesn't open on a Tuesday, and you've spent your last fighting. The fact that there's no online resources, there's no page where you can just, do you get a form? Do you have to buy the form? Which office is it in? Do you need a lawyer? Like I had to discover all of those things by myself. But because I was so, and that's why you find a lot of women end up giving up because of that.
Yeah.
The time, it's not even
yeah.
about the resources, it's about the time and the way the system tries to frustrate you.
Mm.
Because imagine if from the court to the police, back to the court, everyone is saying, you start to doubt yourself and your decision that you've made. Because people are making you feel like you're doing something that's taboo and something that's unheard of. But unfortunately, I had tried. I had tried.
So after you leave, and then you go through the 4 years of struggling to get everything together, what happened for it to, in that space of he had access to abuse you anymore? What happened that everything finally
Everything
stopped?
finally stopped when I think he just had to realize, or he came into, well, he had moved on anyway. Um, and he had come to the realization that he couldn't hide from this divorce aspect anymore.
Mhm.
It was something that had to happen. And we went to court, and the judge asked him a few questions. She asked me a few questions, and then she said, divorce granted. And that was it. And we both cried. Um, we both cried because I think it was just that divorce is a very horrible thing. I don't understand children involved. It's not to have a party and I'm free of something that you thought was going to give you life. So once I actually had the divorce decree, it also started a whole new, for me, it was a very sad thing. It took me a while to get over the two little boys and thinking, geez, what am I going to do? How am I going to raise these boys? But God was gracious. And from that point on, when I knew that we were free, for lack of a better word, and then he then had the opportunity to leave the country, and then we were able to just live freely. And he left the country. And that did help, I think. Probably all of us, because he had moved on and I was able to be here with the boys and try and get on with life and create something stable, or to create some kind of family, some kind of family structure that they would understand. But my family, my parents, my siblings, and my friends, absolutely amazing. They supported me through every decision that I made. No one ever doubted me or made me feel like I was doing something wrong. They said, if this is what you have decided for yourself, just tell us where to be and what to do, and we'll be there.
So, at what point, or what is it that made you realize that you were healing and you're ready to move on with your life? You're ready to rediscover love and grow your family. And how did you? I guess what I want to know is, how did you know that, okay, you know what, I'm ready. I'm ready to move on.
In 2014, I wrote a prayer list, of which, like, it had about 13, 14 points on it. And that prayer list was very clear in the kind of man that I was looking for. And the first mandate on my list was to find a man who would love my boys, accept the fact that I have children, accept my health condition, which at the time we thought was a permanent thing, and just be accepting of the situation, and to have a gentleness to understand that I can never go through what I went through. Because the kind of personality I have, I'm a free spirit, I'm a thriver, like I'm a lover of life, I'm bright, and I'm a bird that wants to fly, and and it was a very, very specific list. And interestingly enough, as the years rolled by, I started to actually see the pressure from the boys without them realizing that they were kind of like indirectly pressurizing me. And why do I say that? It was now the little things like Father's Day, and people would be like, "Oh, Kitty, happy Father's Day." And I'd get really irritated and say, "But no, I'm not their father. I'm not a man."
Right.
So I personally don't believe in women being said to say Happy Father's Day, because I feel there are things that a man does and can do for a child that a mother can never do. Let's be honest.
Very true.
And then I started to realize it, and I'd be like, "Oh, at sports, when they're like Father's Day run, and then the boys would be asking me questions like, 'Oh, mom, so like if I want to do this as a boy, what do I do?' And even little things like teaching them how to use the toilet. I was like, but this actually isn't my job. Like, how am I going to demonstrate physically to a young boy how to aim into the chamber without messing the toilet seat? This is a job of a man that has to do that." And as the years rolled by again, and they were getting older, I started to feel the void on behalf of my little family, to just say, "Look, God, I've been praying for all of these years, and I am ready. I'm ready for the blessings that I know you have that can come my way. I'm ready when your timing is right. I'm ready." And I feel the boys are also ready. And in 2018, met someone completely unexpectedly. I was not supposed to be there. I was studying for exams, because now I became very entrenched. My sister friends called me out and said, "Come out." And one of them distinctly said, "You never know, your future husband might be here." And I remember rolling my eyes, sitting on my dining room table saying, "Yeah, right, future husband, whatever." I put Vaseline on my mouth, didn't even comb my hair, and I left and I went out. And then I met the love of my life on that night in the most bizarre way, so unexpectedly. And pretty much from the day that I met him until today, we never separated. And it was just so unexpected. And my heart just knew. And it took 2 years of taking it really slowly and just trying to get to learn each other. And for the boys also knowing him in the context of mom's friend, because I was very wary of just in case something happens and you don't want the kids to say the first man we've ever met and then them holding on to say, oh, maybe we found a new dad and then something happens. But the other thing that I was also very quick to do within a few months was to introduce him to my parents. I said, listen, guys, yo, I'm 38. I'm not a child anymore. I'm not going to be hiding this. This is the man who is my friend, to be diplomatic in African culture. And I would like you to, I would like him to be around you and vice versa. So you guys are also able to tell me how you feel. Because I don't want a situation where the next you hear is Tete calling to say, oh, Kirada Gororwa, but you don't know who he is. I would love for you guys to have the opportunity to grow with him and to know him and to love him at the same time that I'm also doing it. And they were like, okay, cool, let's do it. So birthdays and family functions, and he started coming. And then my grandma, to this day, gave him a name, and she was like, because with my health issues, there was a time in 2019 where I was on crutches for 6 months. Before I had a spinal block, because I ended up getting osteoarthritis. And then she would say, "Ko driver," I say, so she wouldn't remember his name. She'd be like, "Why are not driving?" As a grandma, she's excited, but she's trying not to. "Ko driver, copy." So to this day, my grandma calls him driver. What driver? What do you say? But introducing him to the family was the best thing that I ever did, because he then got to forge relationships separate to my own, with my brother, with my cousins, with this and that. And then by the time he then said, let's do it, let's take the plunge, it was just perfect. It was perfect.
Beautiful.
Wow. Yeah.
So
it
beautiful.
was perfect.
Do you notice
And
how you went from when you started talking about the love of your life, the way you lit up? Do you ever realize it was a complete change?
Wow. No, he has been a healer. And if I tell you, from the time we met, I've been in remission from 2019. And I always say, love healed me. Restoration of love, restoration of peace of mind, affirmation of the fact that I can be loved. My boys can be loved. They can have a dad, where to the point now, when people see him with the boys, unless they know my personal story or they know us in general, people don't realize they're not his kids. Or they only realize at the point maybe where they have to read the names and realize they've got different surnames, but you would never know that they're not his kids. You would never, ever know. He has just been amazing. And then the blessing of them being able to expand the family. That's why there's such a big age difference, obviously, between the kids. And then having these, so we've got the 2 older ones, and then we like to say the 2 little ones. So it's perfect, the older 2 and the little 2. And now we have a girl finally after 3 boys. So that's also just been an amazing journey, to just have this little princess to just put as the cherry on top of our story. Yeah.
It is a beautiful story, because a lot of times we don't discuss the after.
Yeah.
So to even get to a point where you're living a full life,
Yeah.
it didn't destroy you.
No.
It didn't set you back.
No.
You actually went forward, and you're doing better than you could. You found someone that you probably never expected to find, but
he's there.
He's there.
He's there. He's there.
Wow.
And it has been amazing. Yeah, you've got your days, obviously, where you go through your ups and downs, but just the thanksgiving in my heart to God to say, because I remember I used to think to myself, gosh, I got divorced at 30, and I'd be like, can I really be single until I'm 100 and just say for 70 years I live by myself? Like, how tragic would that be? That's how I used to look at it. And I remember saying to not make me believe in love, because I know it's there. And I know there's someone out there who's for me. And God came through. He came through. And I'm always telling women, please don't give up. I know we go through horrible things. And I know, and sometimes it's interesting when people are like, oh, but you're so lucky. And because of where I am now, people forget that I had that break in between. People, number one, forget what I went through. And then people forget that I actually had like an 8, almost 9-year hiatus of being by myself with my boys for me to then arrive to where I am. So sometimes it's also an issue of patience.
Right.
It's an issue of God just letting you go through a certain season so you're able to settle yourself, you're able to get other things done. Because if I had jumped straight into another relationship, number one, who knows the damage it could have done to the boys? I never would have been able probably to go back to school and to do all the things that I ended up doing, to travel with the boys, to give them memories, just as the 3 of us before, getting into a new family. So it was a season that I'm so grateful for. It was worth the wait. Yeah, it was a long time in terms of what I had to go through and endure, but it was worth the wait.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. She said to
Okay.
continue. She'll
So it's
edit.
Kiri and
Go ahead.
Kiri underscore KIRI underscore Mrs. M. And then I do have a Facebook page, but to be honest, with COVID and having these babies, I have not paid much attention to it in the last couple of years, but I will be. But every year, at least during the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, I always do something. I always do competitions, people wear orange, or do public talks, or do question and answers. So I do every year make an effort to say, it doesn't matter that I'm in a new season in my life. I still need to keep advocating to get people
Yes.
to also receive the blessing of the season that I am in my life and to give them the motivation that it can happen and you can survive and you will get through it. So yeah. And then so the Facebook page is Kiri Gumunyu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We
You're welcome.
appreciate you. We're gonna share the information. Every week we try to do a highlight of someone special and what they do and how they can be reached. So we'll post all of that on our Instagram and Facebook, just to show more awareness of the great work that you're doing. Because in our culture, hearing your story and where you to the point that you've gotten, a lot of people are not doing that. A lot of people are just staying. And I tell you, just go back and talk about it. And to have that energy, that ambition to say no, to stand for yourself, because you stood in the gap for yourself. It's really a tremendous thing. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, ladies. It was such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely admire your strength and your resilience, just the happiness that's just, you just look so happy, and we're so proud of you and so happy for you for everything that you've overcome and the life that you're enjoying today. And I hope that anyone who listens to this, who's going through something, feels encouraged to get out, and so that they can find their happy as well. So thank you so much for sharing your story. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. And keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Don't forget to follow us, ZimLadiesRoundtable.com, and our YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. Please like
everything.
There's so many sites, so many networks.
Get ourselves too.
I know.
All right. Well, thank you so much and have a great day,
you.
guys.
You too.